Hi everyone, welcome to our latest session for Scottish International Week, where we're going to discuss fuel change. Fuel change was created and came into existence perhaps a couple of years ago, but what we're going to do, we're going to hear much more about it and the way that fuel change is transforming the way we work towards a green future for Scotland. But first of all, I'd like to introduce our panelists. So could I start with the inventor of all this, and the man who brought us all together? That's David. David, could you introduce yourself?
Yep, I'm David Reid, the Chief Executive of Fuel Change, and I must step in at this point, Russell, however, and say I am not the inventor, because Jen, who's about to introduce herself, is every bit the inventor as I was. So I doff my hat to Jen. So no, thanks for the introduction, and delighted to be here and speak to you all.
Thanks so much, David. And Jennifer?
Over to me then. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Jen Tempany. I suppose I'm the other part of Fuel Change. David Reid's my partner in crime in this. And we've been working together, but actually with loads and loads of other people. And I'm really glad that Hannah and Andrew are joining the call this morning. We've been on a bit of a journey, and it'll be really great to talk to you about it.
Thank you very much. And Hannah?
I'm Hannah Roberts. So I work for Jacobs as a mechanical engineer in the building services sector. I graduated from Heriot-Watt last year, and I got involved in fuel change just a month after I joined Jacobs.
Thank you very much, Hannah. And Andrew?
I'm Andrew Wilson. I'm an instrument electrical technician at Petroneos, and I got involved in fuel change maybe about 18 months ago to 2 years ago, and it's kind of been non-stop and grown arms and legs from the get-go.
Thanks very much, Andrew. So perhaps if I could ask for that definition of what fuel change is, perhaps Jennifer, could you tell us that?
So David and I were talking about this, of who does what. So this is absolutely David's question, because he always marks me out of 10 on it. So today I get to mark him instead. It's over to you, sir.
Oh, well, thanks very much. That's nice of you. Anyway, Russell, firstly, we are a for-profit social enterprise, which is an important distinction, which I'll come to. And what we believe at Fuel Change is that the truly engaging the next generation is absolutely fundamental to a positive transition to net zero. Right, that's our values, and by doing our approach to that is the truly engaging piece. So the Fuel Change run a program in particular, and our program is all about having the next generation involved in creating their own future. So we run a challenge program, and the challenge program is all about unearthing talent and giving the next generation the opportunity to address some real life challenges set by industry. And the real life challenges are all sustainability and climate change related, but they are questions that industry doesn't have answers to. And we engage teams of the next generation from across the UK and beyond now to take on these challenges in a fairly unique programme that not only engages them in sustainability, no matter how engaged they are or disengaged, it also brings them a whole bunch of meta skills and life skills and work skills that they apply to the workplace. Fundamentally, Russell, we're about making businesses better by creating a whole swathe of the next generation in businesses that will drive sustainability up through their business, make it a real positive for the business and also for the individuals involved. So that's what we do, and we're really pleased that we have got some great success stories, not just around individuals such as Hannah and Andrew, but also in businesses who have really started to feel the benefit of unearthing talent and empowering them to look at their own future.
So thank you very much for that, David. So I'm really intrigued to get into a bit of detail here, because I've spoken at a couple of fuel change events and been involved in some of the programs, and the energy that's created is quite dynamic here. So if I can paraphrase back, what you're doing is you're enabling younger people within organizations to work on challenges towards our journey towards net zero. So these wouldn't have happened naturally within the corporate function, but what they are doing is they're creating huge opportunities for the companies, as well as the people involved. Is that correct, Jennifer?
Yeah, that is correct. And I think, you know, I said in my opening part, we've been on a bit of a journey, because actually when David and I started this out, we're both actually really passionate about next generation. You know, my background's in engineering and I suppose laterally in apprenticeships, and I've always felt there's this untapped talent there. But when we started this off, we thought that the next generation just needed a platform because they were all on it. And if you were a couple of years ago, if you were looking at the media and you were aware of that kind of thing, that was the vibe. But actually, that isn't the case. And what we did find though is, and I suppose just going back to that, why would the next generation be on it? You know, we've been living through a climate crisis for 25 years, except we don't seem to be behaving like we're in a crisis. And lots of people think that it's important, and it is important. But what we've found is it's not urgent. You know, there are lots of other urgent things that are going on at the moment, whether it's an energy crisis, a war on talent. There's various different other things that are really impacting businesses. And although they see sustainability as important, it's not urgent. So if you actually combine the opportunity of tackling sustainability, then you can actually get after some of the things that you think are urgent. So we have grown and adapted our programme over the last wee while to do just that. So we get the next generation engaged in problem solving and critical thinking, and we just so happen to put it through the lens of sustainability. And what we found is, as David said, the process of doing that and doing it over a longer period of time, but shorter parts actually, and I'll let Hannah and Andrew come in this as in what did that feel like and what was the impact. But the output that we see is that it really sticks, and it is really impactful, and it's very positive for business, and it actually allows the people that have participated to go back into their businesses and solve other really urgent problems that they've got going on.
Thank you very much for that, Jennifer. And just before I turn to Andrew and Hannah, could David or Jennifer, could you give us an example of a challenge project so that we can encapsulate that in our minds before we speak to people who've actually been involved in these?
Sure, we have lots of them, and if I was to pick one or two in particular, we'll set a challenge just now, actually, which has been part of the new challenges, which has been set by SSE, Scottish and Southern Energy. So they've set a challenge that says we know almost exactly what we need to do to tackle the energy transition in the UK. Like, we know what we need to do, and it's a mammoth task. What we don't know is how we're going to attract the people we need, the talent we need to be attracted into that sector and that industry, because there's lots of opportunity to do other things. So we need the talent and the resources, and also working with BAM Construction, who work with them. The other one is around the resources they need, the materials they need, because they don't have and don't see where they'll get materials from. So the challenge that's been set there, that's live now, is how does the next generation, so the teams that are working on this, how do they create something and do all of the ideas that they may develop to attract people into that industry, and where do they get the resources from? So that's a fairly wide-ranging question, but it's absolutely key and fundamental to delivering an energy transition. But then we go to the other end of the spectrum where there are some quite technical questions. The technical questions around carbon capture, or how do we change the view of plastics and use plastics in the future, even to the point of our very first set of challenges. The question was, there are 1,000 aircraft decommissioned every year around the world. The aviation industry takes out all the good bits, right? They take out all the instrumentation and the wiring, and so they take all these good bits and they're left with a shell, a carcass. So what do they, instead of going to landfill, what would you do with it? It was a brilliant question in the first challenge. And we got a whole host of answers, all the way from we're going to slice it up and make it homeless shelters, through to we'll take it to developing countries and use it for grain storage, and one team were going to slice it up and make it into bespoke clocks to sell to the aviation enthusiasts around the world. The lovely thing about that last one is the team involved actually made some clocks from old parts of aircraft and sold 5 of them for £1,500 each. So we're going from the biggest problems we've got right through to some of that real technical minutiae. And the great thing is, by the end of it all, the teams are right on it, the participants are right on it, and they're really they're energized to do other things.
Thanks very much for that, David. Now, I'm going to talk to Hannah and Andrew, who have been through the programme, have taken part in these projects. So first of all, Hannah, could I start with you? Could you tell us a little bit about the challenge that you and the team were asked to address and about the experience of working on this? Because what we want to do is to get more people involved. So I hope your experience was positive.
Yeah, definitely. So me and my team chose the CBI Economic Model Challenge, which was really broad. So it basically meant how could we create a business model that would be sustainable. So just to start off with, I got put into a team with other people from my company, Jacobs, but I'd never met them before. So we were based all around the UK. So we had one of us in Scotland, one of us in Wales, and one of us in England. So I really liked about the challenge that they had the 3 main sprints and that they were split up, because sprint 1 really allowed us as a team to be able to get to know each other and connect and see each other's strengths and weaknesses and how we could all use them in order to create something to do with this business model. So that was really good. And another key aspect of the challenge, which I thought was amazing, was having a fuel change mentor, which was Jen. It was absolutely amazing. We had regular meetings with her, I think weekly, and it was just fantastic for our team to kind of have kind of a mini goal to strive for each week and have something to produce to show Jen, so we could kind of use her as a sounding board almost, to kind of flourish out our ideas, and we always came away with way more than we needed. But my experience of how the actual challenge was set up into the sprints was great.
It's really interesting because someone of my generation can remember joining a large corporation like Jacobs coming out of university, and it was you were almost siloed. You would work within your team, and it would take months, perhaps years, to start meeting the rest of the business. So giving you that opportunity to meet with people in different parts of the country and different parts of the group, that must be incredibly valuable at such an early stage in your career.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one of the main reasons I actually got involved with Fuel Change. So about a month after I joined Jacobs, one of the directors, Stuart Turnbull, had sent an email to people in my line of business saying, does anyone want to get involved? And yeah, one of the main reasons I chose to be involved was to kind of meet like-minded people with the same values as me, and obviously to kind of grow my network, which it's done amazingly as well.
That's fantastic, because that networking within that ecosystem of the company is so important, and it can take, trust me, before the internet it took forever. Now, just the second point you said there about the mentorship you received as going through the program. So normally within a large company, you would have relationships with your peers, with your manager, with some of the business lines that you're working with. But here you had an external voice to help nurture the ideas that you and the team were coming up with. How do you think that felt? And probably you would have seen that in reflection to your peers who weren't involved in these projects.
Yeah, it felt so valuable to have someone so higher up giving us direct advice and not kind of coming through all the different channels of people that it can sometimes take to come through. We really took everything on board that Jen said, and I definitely think it's why we felt so engaged with the challenge as a whole as well.
Thank you very much, Hannah. And now I'll turn to Andrew. And Andrew, you'll have to start by first of all telling us where you are.
So I'm currently sitting in a porta cabin on site, hiding out the rain. So this has been a win on that front already, without even having to answer any questions. No, mine was much the same like Hannah's. We had the mentorship and everything, but I would say I didn't fully have a choice to join Fuel Change, but I definitely think that it done wonders because, to be honest, I work in an oil refinery. I thought, looking at like eco-friendly stuff, this kind of sustainability stuff, I was thinking this isn't ideal, in the kind of eco-friendly stuff might kind of almost put me out of job as such. But from doing the Fuel Change, you see how they go hand in hand together and how doing one can really promote the other. And I found that like the passion from the Fuel Change team and the interest that they had really made a difference in how passionate and enthusiastic you put into the challenge. That I was like, and it's going through to managers that are maybe 2-3 levels above me, sending them emails going, we need to get this done now. This isn't something that can go through the channels that maybe in before you wouldn't, or in any other project, you'd be going to your supervisor and then up and as such. So it was really good. And then from that, I've kind of done other challenges as well, and Fuel Change has really helped. And like they said, it's not just the eco-friendly and sustainability stuff. I've networked and worked through working with different people and getting more responsibility and projects and stuff through work, that it's really helped my career, as well as doing the stuff for the Fuel Change as well.
Wow, you covered a lot there, Andrew. That you very succinctly named a number of the advantages of getting involved in a Fuel Change challenge. And like Hannah, you mentioned the networking opportunities, but that educational one as well, because I feel that when I went into a large corporation, I very quickly became institutionalized about the organization's think, if you like. But whereas through this program, you've sort of come up with your own creativity and more about the market in general. And I would imagine you're going to add a lot more in your future career to your employer through having that freedom of thought.
Oh, definitely. Definitely thinking outside the box. And I think, especially in my company, we've been here a long time. It's very much this is how we do it. So coming in with other ideas and stuff like that's a fresh insight. And yeah, again, it's done wonders on that front.
Thank you very much, Andrew. If I could turn to Jennifer now. So Jennifer, could you tell us a little bit about how this works? You know, because how do you manage to manage the projects when you've got teams across the country or across the world? They're in different companies. They don't know each other, and then you're doing it all remote. No, do you have a team of 100 people? How do you do it all?
I see David's laughing there. No, we don't have a team of 100 people. So Hannah's right. So what we do is we take questions, real questions from industry. So the challenges usually have either if they're a spotlight looking at an area or a sector, or the national challenge where we've probably got 5 or 6 questions. But as David said, they're from organisations and they're real questions that they're looking for real answers for. So we put those to teams. And normally organisations, so in Hannah's case, she was asked if she wanted to join, and in Andrew's case, he was joining, which actually is kind of what we look for. So we want people who aren't really on it or are a bit like, I'm not so sure about this, because actually for them, we find that it's really impactful. So they work together, they come together in teams, and they solve this challenge in a series of 3 sprints. And what we do is that we give them over webinars and over Zoom calls. And actually, we've advanced. We're using a network platform and we're dropping in bits that they need to do each week. So it's in a sort of drip feed aspect. And as Hannah said, each kind of week we give you something to do. So it might be exploring how you are in a team. It might be aspects of critical thinking, and all the way we're helping you to solve this challenge. But actually, you know, it isn't easy. So we've designed it so then actually it feels a bit rotten at times and it feels a bit tough. But the thing about that is once you get to the end, then you've got that element of satisfaction. And I would love to say that Dave and I were really smart and we thought that doing it over a long period of time was critical, but that we actually completely stumbled over. So there's 3 sprints. And we did it like that because we thought we wouldn't get enough time with people. But that little and often really is actually, I think, the key for it being impactful. You've got a bit of time for it to breathe. You've got time to think about it. So in the second sprint, you get a mentor, and that mentor is there in my case, I'm not supposed to try and help, but I can't help myself. But you're there to try and support the team. You know, it's not your problem to solve as a mentor, but what skills, who do you know, who have you got in your network, who can you reach into? Because you're probably about our age, Russell. So there's some people that you can tap up and say, come on, give them a hand. And then the final sprint is actually about showcasing the output to your problem, your solution, what have you found? And we do it in a kind of judge's houses way. But it's not as a critical aspect, it's more an opportunity to present what you've done. And for some teams, actually, that's a really big deal. And they get the opportunity to be fairly challenged, actually, in their final presentation. I see Hannah's nodding there because a couple of people that she had to present to were, you know, fairly senior in organizations, and they didn't give them an easy time. But at the same time, I think they got a lot out of that process. So it's all about development and solving a problem at the same time.
That's fabulous. Thank you. So we can see that arc of the project as people work on the challenge. Now, you mentioned mentors. So do you look for people to volunteer to get involved as mentors?
Yeah, so Fuel Change, I suppose, for me exists. So Joseph and our team said to me one day, he went, what does Fuel Change look like as a person? And I was like, oh, it's two people, it's not one person. So there's next generation that are driving this and really moving it forward and participating in the challenge. But then there's current generation. So people like me and David and yourself who've maybe got a bit more experience or a network or a bit of time. And if you want to give something back, then it's a great way to be able to support people that are starting out in their careers, or indeed that are, you know, even in school. We've got a schools program, and Andrew could maybe talk to you a wee bit about that because he then went on and supported in school. But it's an opportunity to work with people that you from other organisations and support them through a challenge and a process. And actually, the feedback we've had from people that have mentored was that they've really enjoyed it and found it really worthwhile. So if there are people that are on this call that think, actually, I could do that, I've got those skills, doesn't matter where you are in the world, just get in touch and we'd be glad to have you join I call it the Fuel Change family. So you can come and join the family.
That's excellent. Thank you for making that call. So anyone wanting to get involved as a mentor to reach out. Just one quick question about the final stage. So when the team present to the challenge sponsor, is that challenge sponsor senior execs within their own company? Is that the way it works?
So the challenge is usually presented to a sort of panel of judges. We normally have a Fuel Change person as a judge, and either an industry expert as well as somebody from the challenge setter. So that's kind of how we work it. And then if you're the team's mentor, you're allowed to come along and watch, but you're not allowed to say anything.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. So now if I could turn to you, David. What we're talking about is how Fuel Change works with big companies. Is Fuel Change appropriate for smaller companies?
So it's a really good question, Russell, because we probably started off more with larger corporates because we were able to get to them easier as we evolved and made our way over the past couple of years. But where we've got to is we've managed, Jen said a few times that we've sort of molded ourselves and we've sliced and diced a wee bit just to evolve, which has been great, as you would expect from a startup organisation. But now beyond that, we've now managed to understand how our approach would be for all manner of companies. So if I look at corporates, it's very clear what we do, and Hannah done a great representation of that networking impact and all of these good things, which is fantastic. We're also working with medium-sized companies, and medium-sized companies actually have been really interesting because their approach to this has been thinking a wee bit out of the box, to use Andrew's phrase, about how they might use Fuel Change differently, and they're definitely using it to find talent in their business and then drive it up through the rest of their workforce. You know that Gungy layer that exists in most organizations, people like me who say they're up for change, but actually they're quite resistant to change. I've always done it this way, son, type characters, right? So that drive from the bottom up in medium-sized companies really does impact their entire business. One of the companies we work with very closely is called Booth Welsh down in Ayrshire. They are about 300 people, fantastic company, properly good company, but they're using it to reach out to their clients. So they're bringing client teams in to work with their next generation, working together as a business management tool. So they've found a different way to do that, which is different than you might see the larger corporates. The next layer down through is SMEs. And we've just started to do, for example, a spotlight challenge in the south of Scotland, which you've helped with, Russell, and we really appreciate your help. It's been quite interesting because lots of these businesses have came and said, actually, sustainability is probably a cost to us and we don't see the benefit. And actually, we don't know what to do, right? We don't know actually what to do. Now, fortunately, we managed to prove that sustainability is an opportunity for them. And what we're finding is that by having 1 and 2 younger people in our organisation who become involved, they're almost becoming their subject matter experts in their business. So they'll probably double hat doing their day job, but also they're the ones that will drive sustainability, understand it more at a business level, that even where it's a 15 or 20 or 30 person business, then there's a way fuel change can really help and drive sustainability into these smaller businesses. And the very final one is micro businesses. Micro businesses have said, we don't have anyone at that age, right? We're like small 1s and 2s. I'd love to be a mentor though. Can you include me? I really want to be part of this. So there's been a nice mix, for everyone. It's not the same for all, without a doubt. There's different objectives, but fortunately we've managed to be, quite chameleon-like in moving through all of these different size of businesses to make an impact. So it's been great. The one last thing I'd say about that is that networking piece that Andrew mentioned, meeting people from other businesses, starting to talk, really has expanded their minds as well. So the community that we've got running now allows, if you like, our alumni to speak to different businesses and reach out to them and just ask for some help. So in the end up, going from here, we love people in Brisbane to speak to people in Birmingham and speak to people in Boston, different size of business, different geographies, because that power and drive can take us somewhere.
I'm so glad you mentioned that networking piece, because I'm described as a global network builder. How's about that for a job title?
There you go.
And part of building these networks is about, we can no longer just bring a random group of people together and assume they're going to do something. What we have to have is purpose. And the challenge provides purpose, because we have a challenge, we're trying to achieve a goal, and then we can start using that network because we have a specific ask to get individuals involved to help us to achieve that objective.
Yeah.
So if I could turn to Hannah and Andrew, because I want to get onto the future, but what I want to hear from Hannah and Andrew is, if someone is considering becoming involved, so they're a young person at an early stage in their career, they're possibly worried about diverting some of their time onto a non-aligned business role. What would you to say to them is the benefits they're going to accrue from getting involved? Perhaps Hannah first.
Well, as I said, I've been in my role a year, so I'm still in that early career position. And I find that when you're in like a big corporation in your early years, you may not get the exposure to a lot of kind of presentations. You kind of want to build on your communication, your teamwork skills. And I think Fuel Change has allowed me to do all of that. I mean, as Jen mentioned, having to do a presentation on an idea with my team that we've developed to really high up people in some really doing a presentation to people that are really high up in business and having to answer questions on the spot about all of that. I'd never have the chance to do that maybe until a good few years into my career. So to anyone thinking about getting involved, I think it's just great to improve on all those soft skills. And as you mentioned, kind of you do have to set time aside for it. And in my line of business, I'm always working on different projects. I might be working on multiple at once. So also having kind of my own personal project, kind of outside of my usual business, made my time organization much better. I'd always leave, say, a couple of hours in each week to be able to do that. and it's just allowed me to be able to really see how I can manage my time in my career.
That's wonderful, Hannah. You talked there about education, about skills development, again, about building that network, but also how this gave you control over your own project and that ability to show the difference you were making at an early stage. Because in any company, when we join, we want not only to make a difference, but we need to be visible that we've made the difference so that more opportunities will come our way. Thank you so much for that, Hannah. That was excellent. What's left, Andrew?
Not really much. More just the same, and I would say everything that you put in, you get tenfold back out. It's definitely, I feel, maybe to start off with, I was a bit hesitant about how much effort and time you put in, but it gets hooked into you, and you're just drawn into it, and then you see the progress of where we started off from our idea to getting it as a project, to submitting it for funding, to it going through the approval process, all these things that you wouldn't get as much. Like I'm only a year and a bit out my apprenticeship, you wouldn't get exposure to that until maybe 10, 15 years into your career. It's almost leapfrogged you through the years, gives you that exposure and experience. And from that, you're meeting people that are maybe higher up in the business and stuff like that. And from that, I've certainly got a lot more opportunities away from Fuel Change that I wouldn't have got if I hadn't have done Fuel Change or been a part of it.
Excellent. And if I could ask you one final question, Andrew, and it's about, is there an alumni developing? Are we now starting to see a group of individuals coming together who sort of brand themselves as being through the Fuel Change program? So you see your peers and perhaps getting the opportunity to help fresh people getting involved. Are you seeing that develop?
Yeah, 100%. Even the Fuel Change team itself, when I first started, I think it was Jen, David, and one or two others, Anna, and now I've seen pictures and stuff like that, and the squad's tripled, and then we've got the networking has gone so much bigger, and from like the meetings and stuff like that, the Grangemouth Challenge, there was a few companies involved, so I was meeting similar people in the same position to me in different companies, and got them now on Facebook, etc. Speak to them about stuff, and even through the project, it's kind of talked about other things, and then it gets brought up. And I know there's a couple of people that were part of like the INEOS companies, and we've all been put into the Grangemouth Economic Network from that. So we're all now involved in a multi-company like collab as such, and it wouldn't have happened if it hadn't have been from Fuel Change as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Andrew, and you too, Hannah. So now let's talk about the future. So we've talked about the benefit to the individual, the benefit to the company. I remember attending COP26 last year in Glasgow, and there was so obviously a problem with the fact that so many of the people speaking on the stage, so many people taking part in the events were all my age or not that much younger. We also had younger people who felt that they were separate from the discussion. You're solving that by bringing the generations together. But the ultimate goal here has to be to generate solutions and mindset about reducing this carbon generation we're doing and moving to net zero. What are the plans now, David and Jennifer, to move this forward globally? Because we need you to be successful.
Yeah, so I'll maybe chip in first and Jen can come in. So firstly, and this is important for the Scottish Business Network, so I'm a passionate Scot, right? Jen, is that fair? I'm a passionate Scot, but I was also really fortunate, and I worked in the same company as Hannah does. I was in Jacobs, and I was a lucky guy because I had a nice global role. I wasn't a global networking Scot, or whatever your title was there, Russell, but it was good enough. But I was fortunate. I worked in a company that faced out to the rest of the world, and one of my real drivers through Fuel Change on a personal basis is Scotland should be and is at times a living lab. So what we've been doing is we've been trying to make this really good, and from our Scottish base, which is now expanded into a UK base, on the basis that Scotland itself is only 0.08% of carbon emissions in the planet, right? So we're a rounding error. But we're not a rounding error when it comes to making an impact. So taking fuel change from here now that we've really got it nailed down, we know, not only is it making an impact to Andrew and Hannah's of this world, it's making an impact to, we've had 1,500 participants so far. We now need to scale this and expand it abroad and start to connect and network with the rest of the world. And that's the whole living lab element of it that takes it to the world, which is why the Scottish Business Network is such a powerful network for us to be involved in, and delighted to be involved in. So that next stage is, how do we scale it up? And scale it up into companies where we don't need 100 staff, frankly. We want to train trainers. We want this to be part of the DNA of businesses, so they do this themselves, and at the same time pull together that network piece, the alumni piece that Andrew spoke of, that starts to cross borders, that starts to share solutions. And I would probably put, when you said solutions and mindset, our job, I think, is to put mindset ahead of solutions. A mindset of, we can make a difference, we can do things that will make a difference. That thing about being a speck of dust, well, when you put specks of dust together, they become something really powerful. So that mindset of, this is the future I want, this is the type of society I want to be in, and this is what I expect of my company, will start to drive companies to say, this is how I want to be, or I won't promote and I won't attract the best talent in the world. We want to create the best talent in the world for companies to use to drive this forward. So that mindset probably comes before solutions. Solutions is just an adaptation of that drive and desire. Does that answer your question so far, Russell?
Oh, that was tremendous. You've summed it up and encapsulated it so well. But I'm going to leave the final word, if you all don't mind, to Jennifer, because I want to hear about what you see the future for fuel change. So if we imagine we roll forward 5 years or 10 years, could you tell us a little bit about what you would like to see happening? And then we've made a call here for companies to get involved, early stage career people to get involved, apprentices get involved, mentors get involved. But I'd like to hear from you. Maybe if you could just tell us a little bit what you see the prospects are, or the opportunities here as fuel change goes global.
Okie doke. So it's funny you should talk about 2030, because actually David and I did a bit of that a while ago. And one of the things, I know this is about businesses, but it's really important around a pipeline of people with the right mindset, because if you think about 2030, I think things are going to be a bit tougher than they are today. So how do we make sure that the people that are in this position, or in Andrew and Hannah's position in 2030, have got the right skills, the right behaviours and the right mindset to really deal with those problems? So at that time, we will have expanded our schools programme. So we're in schools just now, and we're working on education and like knowledge and understanding, as well as taking the challenge programme to really deliver the behaviours and the work ready aspect at the senior phase of education. And then my hope is that, Hannah and Andrew will actually be running, they'll be running Jacobs and Petra Eneos in some various different places in the world. But actually, what they have done is that it's mushroomed and it's grown and it's grown. And actually, that's the way that you solve problems. Because for me, this is about taking something difficult and breaking it down and getting people together and using a process and a mindset and going, do you know what, we can do this, and we can go and ask for help. And we can reach into people that we know, and they can help support us drive that through. So for me, I would like to change how we deal with stuff. And we're much more open to reaching out and collectively getting after a challenge and a problem. And I think, for success for us is that we managed to create sort of some power behind fuel change that actually enables everybody that's on it, whether you're a judge, a mentor, you're a participant, the opportunity to say, I've done something, I've done my wee bit here, and I've helped move that forward. Because actually, for me, it's about people and it's about their opportunities. And it's great hearing Andrew and Hannah today, because they're just at the start of their career. So my hope is that in 10 years' time, they'll reflect back and they'll think, what am I doing now still that's helping fuel change for other people in other businesses or in my community? So that's what I hope.
Well, thank you all very much. And if you're out there watching this, reach out. Fuel change is there for you, and together we can make a difference to the world. Thank you,
Cheers.
David. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Anna. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russell.
Cheers.
Great session. Take care.